So let's have a bit of a discussion on some of the core Android concepts you need to know. Some of the basics of Android, what its philosophy is, where it came from, its origins, but also where it's heading. So let's get into that. Firstly, Android Incorporated was formed in 2003. Four guys came out with a philosophy to develop smarter mobile devices that are more aware of its owners' location and preferences. That's actually a direct quote from one of the founders. Actually, they nearly didn't make it. They nearly ran out of money, but a close friend of one of those four people brought in $10,000 in cash and refused to stake in the company, maybe regretting that now, and that kept them going. And consequently, in 2005, they were acquired by Google. Google actually kept on the original founders, I should say, in the company as well, which was fantastic. First commercial version of Android came out in 2007. As part of this, the Open Handset Alliance was also announced, and that's vendors like HTC, Sony and Samsung are core members, plus wireless carriers like Sprint, Nextel, T-Mobile and more. Now that was obviously back in the day, but now it's obviously a lot bigger than that. First Android phone was the HTC Dream, which was released in 2008, but obviously it's gone from strength to strength since then. And fast forward to 2014, and Android, the operating system, is the most widely used mobile operating system. No operating system of any kind sells more. So Android sell more than Windows, iOS, and Mac OS X combined. Absolutely amazing. So it's huge. For developers, I think it has to be the biggest opportunity right now, bar none. An Android developer, you've got many options. You can sort of specialize, general apps or games or enterprise apps, for Fortune 500 companies or larger companies, or you can sort of be a jack of all trades and, just be able to do a lot of those things to cover all types of apps. You've really got a lot of fantastic options right now as an Android developer. Now, apps are developed on a PC or a Mac, unlike iOS apps, which really need a Mac exclusively, and all the development tools are free, which is fantastic. Heavily supported. This is another thing. Google heavily support Android. Their development tool, Android Studio, is getting better and better, and we'll be using this tool and also the other major tool that Android developers use, known as the Android Development Tools, throughout the course. Android uses Java, but also other languages like C++ for development. We're going to focus on Java in this course. Now, maybe you've heard this, that Java is slow. Once upon a time, certainly when I first started Java in the late 1990s, that may have been the case, but not anymore. And particularly when you take into account that the Android Java is a sort of special version of Java optimized for mobile devices. And it's fast to learn, and it builds solid and very responsive apps. You may not have known this, but the Android operating system is a multi-user Linux system, where each app is a different user. By default, the system sets up files, so only that app can access those files. So it's really sort of quite secure in that sense that other apps by default can't access another app's files. It is, however, possible to share files between apps if you specifically set that up. It also uses the principles of least privileges. So Android gives only the minimum privileges for an app by default. For example, if you want to use the camera in a phone, you've got to ask permission via the setup files. And you've probably seen this if you've got an Android device yourself. When you go to install an app, it does tell you what permissions that app uses. So obviously it's very secure. If you can't access any resource unless you've specifically set it up in that file, and the user is aware of that by default, it means that it's absolutely a very secure environment. Let's go through some of the the four types of components that make up or are the building blocks of apps. The first component is an activity, and think of an activity generally as a single screen with an interface. Services, a component that runs in the background typically, and it performs long-running operations, all sort of remote processes, no user interface traditionally. Music in the background is one example of a service. Content providers. This content provider manages a shared set of application data. Databases is just one example of what a content provider is. And broadcast receivers. They respond to system-wide announcements, like batteries low or a picture was captured, that type of thing. But there's lots more to know, and rather than sort of go through with 100 slides outlining what it is, I think it's better if we actually get into the application and we show you when we're actually developing, as we're going through the course step by step, and what all these concepts are and how to use them, and also how they all fit into the Android development process. So let's get into it.